But I did want to, could you go back to the allegory of the cave? Because I know not everybody knows that, and it is a super interesting, especially relevant today.
Oh my, and what's so amazing is how incredibly old,
Yeah.
right, that this
Yeah.
story is, and it's so unbelievably, it's so accurate and
Yeah.
relevant, and just so you can just when you hear it, and hopefully I'll do a good job laying it out. You're just
Yeah.
like, oh my goodness, that's so relevant, and we're talking, and that's lessons that that you can learn,
Right.
that we're missing. We're missing out on those lessons. This is something that should be that should be taught in school, and we'll dive into that a little bit
Yeah.
later.
Yeah.
Why I think
For sure.
philosophy getting into education is where we can sort of have a paradigm shift and start being more influential on the culture. But so to Plato's allegory of the cave. So essentially, you have a situation where you have all these prisoners are in a cave, and they're chained by their necks in a cave, and they can only see forward. And behind them there are people who will walk on a walkway, and they'll have all these shapes, and you'll see like animal shapes, and there's all these shapes behind. And then so these people who can only see on the cave wall, they don't really understand what's going on behind them, and they think the cave wall is reality. So they're missing the interpretation. So they're seeing shadows of somebody else's interpretation on this cave wall, and that's their reality. And what happens is one of the prisoners breaks free from the chain, and he goes around the back, and he's able to go up through the back of the cave, and he goes out into the sunlight out of the cave. And at first, and that's real reality, that's actual truth and the reality and the beauty of the world. But the sunlight is representative because it hurts his eyes at first, when you first see this. And it's, that's important, because sometimes when we realize a truth that we were wrong and we really didn't understand reality,
And it hurts.
that can hurt, right? The truth hurts. And in the same way, the sun, when he comes out and sees reality, that hurts his eyes, and then his eyes kind of adjust.
Sorry.
And he can, yeah, no, yeah. So yeah, I was wondering, I thought some sun came through your window there, it blinded me. But well, speaking of that, yeah, wow, that was quite cool, quite coincidental there, huh?
Right.
The sun blinding my eyes. Wow. So
it was just to reinforce the story.
Yeah, that was that's a hell of a coincidence. But eventually his eyes adjust, and he's like, wow, this is reality. What we were seeing on that cave wall it was like pretend, it's like a Muppet show. It's just interpretations of shadows. And he can't wait to come down and tell everybody. And this is where everybody makes the mistake. And this is the common theme. Nietzsche's Thus Spoke Zarathustra, it runs this same theme. But sorry, not to get off track.
No.
So he comes down, and he tells everybody, like, look, what you're seeing on the cave wall isn't real. That's not reality. And he starts telling them about all these things out in the real world, the sun and the trees and the green grass and the blue sky. And they laugh at him. They ridicule him. They think he's evil. They actually threaten to kill him, I believe, in the story. And eventually and when he goes back down in the dark, he's blinded again, because when your eyes adjust, but then eventually his eyes adjust, and he just goes back to agreeing with the herd, and they just go back looking at their perception and the shadows on the cave wall. But if you think about those shadows, everybody just staring ahead, and the shadows on the cave wall looking at somebody else's interpretation, that is the direct analogy to TVs and staring at our screens today. It's exact, and everybody thinks they're looking at reality when really they're looking at the shadows on the cave wall. Yeah. And unfortunately, when people who are really, have seen reality and come back, often those are the people who are criticized and censored and called things like conspiracy theorists and all those things. Yeah. And it's such a simple lesson. And if we could teach that lesson at such an earlier age, and if more people understood that, I think we would have, less of that happening throughout our culture.